Hey guys, I am tuning in from Eli Lilly today, so it's a little different and you might hear a little echo because it's a big space. So let me start with this question. I want you to kind of think of this question. Did your vision become a reality or just a poster on the wall, right? And so really thinking about this is, did it show a fade? Like, has it started to fade into the wall? We like to say as educators, the posters that we have on the wall eventually disappear when you don't make reference to it or you're not constantly calling on it. So to be honest, it's not about failure. This is when most of my principals reach out to me because right now they're in survival mode. Whether you're a leader, principal leader, you're an AP, you're a teacher, and you're a part of this school and this very fabric of this vision that was set out that is not necessarily transpiring, right? A lot of school teachers and a lot of principals really envision this idea of this is going to be a great year. We start off the year great, strong relationships. We align our teams. We talk about horizontal and vertical planning. But this is the time in about December time where it starts to fall apart, right? So you either got buried over into like all the work that you're doing, the daily demands of the job. So today we're going to talk about kind of this gap and how we could be honest to really close the gap and understand that this vision doesn't kind of disappear or appear overnight. It's one of those things that quietly erode over time if you're not nurturing it or supporting it. So I want to pause and just stop and let you think about this question. And hopefully this presentation resonates with you. I usually start, hey Cassandra, where are you today? I always say the vision, right? What is the reality gap? Where do we stand? That's why my one of my coaching methods is, thinking about the growth method, what is our goal? Again, and kind of revisiting some of the things. And then I always start with like data. We can't ignore data. And also, are you well? We say as parents and caregivers, if mom is not well, nobody is well, right? And so looking at leaders' struggle during this time, being able to navigate schools and navigate what this means at this time is a struggle for everybody. So I talk about this kind of one in the principal report, thinking about job satisfaction. Nearly 40% have considered pretty much leaving, right? 1 in 5 principals, is that you? Just thinking about, oh gosh, is this a sustainable model? Can I do this alone? At the same time, teacher morale is declining as well. If you're thinking that, most likely your teachers are thinking about leaving the role altogether, right? The teacher morale is declining. There are alarming rates of teachers that are actually still in a space. So again, when mama is tired, kids are exhausted and tired. So when leaders are exhausted and teachers are kind of, feel kind of fed up, they feel ineffective. They talk about the ecosystem and how the ecosystem which is the culture, is not really culturing, and kind of here is the paradox, really thinking of, I think it was like something like the Walls Foundation showed principals are second only to the teachers in their impact for student learning. So when we lead with a clear vision, the problem is that vision doesn't matter if you're not kind of reinforcing it, right? If the conditions aren't right. But I think right now the conditions are more fragile and despair than ever. And so thinking about this systematic approach to schooling or education is not a personal thing. It's something we all are feeling and we all can tackle it together. So when I go into school systems, I always ask these hard questions as a leader, to the leader, and kind of see where they are in their headspace. What are some of the barriers? Where do they need to go, right? And so asking pretty much, did my vision become a reality, right? It's not a hard thing to think about, or what are some of the pieces that worked, what didn't work, or, and so thinking of strong leadership, and it's not about chasing these many initiatives that we have. It's like, how do we define a very small, acute number of non-negotiables and things that we're willing to do to move the needle? So if we're talking about, literacy access for all, cultural relationships, meaningful collaboration among teams, right? And then work on them just relentlessly. Continue to focus on them, continue to bring those up, continue to have reinforcements, right? But that requires these main 3 questions that I put down here. And I hope you are asking yourself these 3 questions. What did I intend? What is actually happening? And what evidence do we have to show that it is happening, right? And so when you as a principal leader stop to ask these three questions, you think about your initiatives and all the things you're doing, it all kind of diffuses what you want our staff to kind of embody very quickly, right? And so thinking about your data, what's working well in your walls, it really shifts the conversation from like this opinionated thoughts and idea from actual clarity and a shared understanding, because every time there's a PD, every time we are kind of in the vicinity, we are talking about one of these three components. In many schools, I kind of see data as a weapon. And we have to really think about how we talk about data and what we're doing. So thinking of data feels like judgment. Ooh, that third grade teacher is really holding us back, right? Instead of this is insight to where we need to move, right? And, a lot of school principals say we value data, but many times I think when presenting data, they feel underprepared to kind of thinking about integrating multiple data sources into meaningful action. And so when teachers kind of receive these reports, they're like, what do you want me to do with this, right? And when they're not really supported in the area of kind of the intersection, this is kind of when data is overwhelming, it's over their heads, and they're like, well, I just was told I was a bad teacher, and now they want me to continue teaching for the year. I need to find something else, right? So really thinking about this is an opportunity here, right? This is powerful. We can identify the numbers, we can become the narrative, and we can have it as a reflection, what's going on, what does this tell us about our systems in place? I think this is where we, EI360, help kind of use the data as support in ongoing growth, connecting it directly back to our original vision, really thinking about how this is purposeful and how everything that we do is purposeful. So always think that there's this challenge that we have to look at the different areas. There's an opportunity that we have to grow, and we are ready to make impact in our next 3 to 5 sessions. I don't think I have to tell you, the burnout is real. This is a real crisis. Thinking about what is our ecosystem saying, right? And so when principals are overwhelmed, the decision quality may decline. Visibility drops. Principals are no longer around. Staff feels like, what direction am I going, right? And so that morale kind of erodes, especially if you're not present, right? And so these early warning signs are clear, right? I'm not volunteering, decreased participation, less collaboration, right? I'm not going to try new strategies. You just told me I was a bad teacher in the last data session, right? And so thinking about what are these transactional interactions that you need to have to think about, like, okay, how do I support this disengaged teacher in PD, right? And so many times this is where we kind of fall short. And we know, of course, research shows that adult culture shapes our very student experience. So I'm depleted as a teacher. I'm depleted as a principal. Students know, they feel it, right? Maybe things are short in the classroom, right? My attention, I'm angry, I'm irritated, right? And so while I believe that addressing this morale is not the soft work, this is the hard work we need to do. This is true instructional leadership at its best. So this is the time when I get most of my calls. Many people are like, for the beginning of the year, we got this, we do it. Beginning of the year, we're excited. We're excited to move the needle. We have all these goals, these ideas. But December is kind of where people kind of like, hey, I need a little help, right? This is when we're very reactive. We are responding to the crisis, right? And so this is kind of where kind of our work looks different. We don't add anything else to your plates. We partner with principals to improve the performance of coaching teachers, instructional leaders throughout sustained data cycles. And so they're not one-off worksheets. We are in the very fabric of the school that you support and you serve. So that means personalized coaching for our leadership, one-on-one, e-learning pathways for our teachers as well as our leaders, professional development that's aligned to kind of what we see that's happening in the school fabric and aligned to school goals, as well as our AI-powered tool that kind of reduces busy work for our teachers and leaders, thinking of what does automations look like in our space so we can give back or have back our time, right? And so the goal is pretty much, professional learning, continuous impact of learning. And our goal, is to support you in the areas of one-on-one coaching, e-learning, aligned goals, and AI support. And I think just re-looking at what did we want to do and what is our shared vision, and understanding that the culture means everything. What does it mean to be co-constructed, right? Widely understood, right? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to us? Thinking about our vision statement, high engagement data instruction. What does that even look like on Tuesday, right? And so being able to translate that, not only these practices to our teachers, but naming what success looks like. I think that is the hardest thing for our principals, is saying, hey, success is this, this, this. These are our goals, and we want to make sure we achieve these, right? And having it in a very fabric of your school. So, and the other thing, I always say this in every one of my PDs, you have to honor the struggle and celebrate the process, right? We're talking about rebuilding. And so what does that mean to have these valuable practices, name what we see, script messages, constantly celebrate our learning, understand routines, and continue to grow? I think as educators, we have so much data, and thinking of how do we take bite-sized pieces, because data is doable, right? One of the biggest barriers that principals kind of list, or the frustration that I hear, is just simply kind of knowing where to go, knowing where to look, and thinking of how do we reduce the cognitive load by helping these teams integrate academic into their data stories, right? And conveying their data stories to not only the people they serve, the teachers, as well as the students and the families. Like, what's going on here? Parents should know our goals and where we're headed. So being able to build our leadership fluency, moving continuously beyond these spreadsheets, data docs, into a narrative that staff and families can understand, repeat, and say, and be proud of, right? And so how do we focus on these actionable, meaningful, bite-sized goals to create measurable steps that will directly lead to our vision, right? Thinking of how do we shift from I don't know what we're doing to there's no guesswork. We know what Tuesday morning looks like for our teachers as well as our parents. So I always like to say you have to rebuild this staff morale with a purpose, right? And so thinking of adult leadership, Andrew Gaji, thinking of what is the adult motivation, and it's usually driven by autonomy, right? Mastery and just true purpose. So in schools, that definitely means that our teachers need a real voice, right? They need hands-on, clear feedback and communication to the larger vision, right? If you have these ideas, what does that mean? So, of course, our coaching model centers on, these particular conditionings, partnering with teachers, goal setting for teachers, providing timely feedback, and celebrating small wins and sharing the wins with the world. Our teachers are in silos, so many times they need that rah-rah, that celebration, because they are working hard. And so thinking about our professional developments, how we can celebrate those small wins and support our teachers. And so sometimes creating visual dashboards during professional development to celebrate our teachers, or nominating or rewarding teachers with a candy bar in front of the staff, or just shouting them out in the morning during the day saying, we appreciate you for your time, right? And so really thinking about when are you doing this and how are you getting a return on your investment when you're talking about really pouring into the teachers. So looking at how do we have a sense of support and purpose, retention. These are all pieces of retention in your school climate. Okay, I cannot leave you without telling you where you go from here, right? Thinking about this framework for principals as a reflection of moving forward. I always like to give you do something, just do it. Do something today, do it now. Where do we go from here? So I really think that this kind of framework is very simple for you to kind of implement, but it's very powerful. Thinking about what is your clarity, right? How do we collect information, compare it, co-plan, and fully commit to what we are about to do? What do we need to do to restate the vision? To think about how do we, maybe we change the vision up so it's a chant or it's a celebration or a cheer, right? How do we gather the aligned data and make the data consistent so we're all looking at the same visuals? We all know what this means for the teacher on Tuesday morning. How do we name the gaps and understand what the gaps mean for not only the principal, but the teacher and the student? And how is the staff supporting your team? And what does this look like for parent integration? How do we design our new steps? What does that look like? Design the steps together. How do we commit to a short-time goal, right? These visuals of celebration and progress should be around the school. If you have the teacher of the month, her face should be plastered everywhere. It should be on your presentation to start the presentation for PD. So thinking about co-plan and commit, but again, your vision doesn't have to be just a poster on the wall that kind of disappears. This idea of, I remember telling this story of going into my friend's house. My friend, she just bought this house, very excited. Ooh, super excited. Bought this new house. It was so beautiful, but it had this ugly wallpaper, right? And so eventually you think of your vision as the wallpaper. And after 3 days of her living in this house, it pretty much disappeared and she kind of disregarded the wallpaper. So if you're not making reference to this ugly wallpaper, then you won't know it's a problem. But I don't know if that helped the story, but just understanding the vision is something ongoing. You have to keep referring to it. You have to keep pointing to it and make sure if it's this culture is not resonating with your team, take it out, change it, right? And so support your strategic focus, your shared commitment. It could become the lived reality of your school. And yes, you could do this now. Yes, you could do this Monday. And so we could do this together. All right. Talk to you later. Until next time, Cassandra Williams. Bye.